Hello and welcome. My name's Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. Today we're going to take a handwritten recipe and turn it into an amazing project with a food safe sealer. Now you all have been asking me what kind of sealers to use that are food safe, and I have an amazing option for you today. So it is Watco, and this is actually a super glaze, so it's ultra thick clear finish that you're going to love. Now, this video is sponsored by Watco, however all projects and opinions are my own. And what are we gonna make with this? So you can make anything like this. You can use the food safe sealer on whatever project you have, but I wanted to give you an example of a project that I personally have been wanting to do for a very long time. So if you have old recipe cards around that your mom or your grandma wrote, this is the project that you're gonna wanna tackle next. So we're gonna take this recipe card and we're gonna turn it into a Cricut cut file. We're gonna cut vinyl and apply it to any surface. So I used this serving board for an example, and then I put the food safe sealer over the top. And now at this point I could use this for a charcuterie board. This is a chest pie recipe, so I could serve my pie on it. Whatever you wanted to serve on the surface, you could do that because it is food safe. So the first thing we need to do is to get this recipe card into Cricut Design Space and actually cut the vinyl. So first of all, let's take a look at the supplies we're going to use for this project. The supplies you're going to need are as follows. So you will need something to put the vinyl on, and I'm going to use this wood surface here. Then you'll need the vinyl itself as well as a Cricut machine. And then after we apply the vinyl, we are going to use a food safe sealer. And I'm going to use this Watco Super Glaze, and it's a resin product. We're going to do 2 coats of that. In order to use this, you're going to need some protective gloves, mixing cups, stir sticks, possibly like disposable brush or a squeegee, something like that. And then you'll need the recipe itself. I have a handwritten recipe here that I want to put on this board in vinyl. Now, in order to do that, I am going to use a Lightbox and either a pen or a marker, as well as some plain copy paper. You can also just take a picture or scan the recipe card in itself, but I am going to show you how that might be more difficult than the method I'm going to use. So you can use either method you would like, and then you will need some transfer tape for your vinyl. So let's get started, first of all, getting this recipe into Cricut Design Space to cut it out. I started by adding my recipe card to my Lightbox and taping it down. Then I put a sheet of copy paper over that recipe card and again taped it down as well. I don't want anything to move during this process. Then I used the thickest pen that I could to trace the recipe completely. In this case, I am using a fine line pen because the writing on the recipe card was in even a finer line of pen. If the recipe card was in like a thicker line and I could use a Sharpie, that would be even better. So you want the thickest, most complete lines that you can get. So a lot of times I leave out any mistakes in the recipe card. Now this recipe card did have one mistake that I kind of left in with a couple lines, but otherwise I tried to remove a lot of the mistakes that you make when you're handwriting something. It will just make it easier when we transfer it to Cricut Design Space. Again, you can skip this portion of the tutorial and scan in the original recipe card if you think that you can clean it up. However, it will be more difficult depending on what your recipe card looks like. So here is the completed one that I traced onto my white copy paper, and here's the original recipe card. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference. I find that the older the recipe card is, the more yellow it will appear. If it's a good recipe, it probably has stains on it. All of these items make it harder to put into Cricut Design Space. So if I was to take a picture of just this card, it would be really difficult. A lot of the writing is faded. I have brown spots, the whole card is yellow, but on this version, where it's white with a pretty clean tracing of my original recipe card, I can probably easily put it into Cricut Design Space. And so now all I'm going to do is take a picture of this with my phone, and then I'm going to upload it to Cricut Design Space straight from my phone and try to use Design Space to clean it up. So let's head there and take a look at that process. I switched to my computer so we could see this a little bit better. First, I want to try to upload the version that was on my original recipe card. So I would click Upload Image, then browse and find the image. So this is that original recipe card just laid on my table. I'm going to pick Complex and click Continue. And you can probably tell just how much cleanup I would have to do to make this usable and to get the font all by itself. Now let's take a look at the version I traced. So I'm going to cancel this. Again, hit upload, upload image, browse and find my image. Now this version I took, and I actually used the scan function on my phone. I have an app that scans. And so now I'm going to try to remove the background automatically. If you don't have access, you can use the select feature and go around and select it manually, but I'm going to try the automatic. And now I can go zoom in here really closely and go in here and make sure that the centers of all of these letters get removed. So you can see that a lot of those are not removed. So we're going to go back to select here and start going into the centers of all these letters and making sure that all of this gets removed. So there will still be quite a bit of cleanup, but hopefully less than before you traced your recipe card. So I'm just going to go around and start removing this. If you need to erase any of it manually, you can use your eraser. You can adjust the size of your eraser here, and you could go in and erase certain portions if you would like. So if the selection tool doesn't work, you can go in and use your eraser. So I'm going to keep cleaning this image up until I'm happy with the results. And how do you tell if you're happy with the results? We're going to do preview cut image anytime we think we're ready, and decide, of course this one is not ready yet, but decide if we're ready to actually cut our recipe. And then just click hide cut image to go back to that original screen. So I'm just going to keep cleaning this image up, hitting preview until I'm happy with the results. Alternatively, you can use one of the background removers that I've talked about before. I will link to a video in the description below if you want to try to use one of those. In the end, however, you want it to look something like this. Your cut image should have the entire background removed and just be your recipe. We're going to go ahead and pick the cut image and click upload. Then you want to pick that image and add to Canvas. At this point, your recipe should look just like the recipe on your recipe card and be a cut image in Cricut Design Space, so it should say basic cut. Now we want to resize it to fit whatever you're going to put it on. So in my case, I would like this to be about 9.5. So I'm going to put that into the box up at the top and leave the dimensions locked so that everything sort of resizes at the same time. And now I have something that I can cut with my Cricut machine. So you can use any Cricut machine for this. I'm going to use my Cricut Explorer Air 2. Now you can change this to whatever color you would like and then click Make Edit. Then you can see your cuts on the screen. Everything should look good at this point. Now we are using vinyl, so you do not have to mirror, and we're going to go ahead and click continue. Now I have an entire other video on getting the best cuts out of vinyl with intricate cuts like this, and I will link to that in the description below this video. So I'm going to use some of those tips and tricks here, including using the washi sheet setting for my cuts. So let's go ahead and head to the Cricut machine and cut this vinyl. Once this is done cutting, we'll remove it, and then I'm going to go ahead and weed away all the excess off of here. Now I did have to run over this a couple of times. I just kept checking the cut in the corner and then hitting the C button again or the go button again to do another pass. So it just depends on the brand of vinyl, how many passes you would need with the washi sheet setting. So let me go ahead and weed this, and then we'll take a look at application and that food safe sealer. Here's the completed recipe, all weeded and ready for transfer to my surface. So we have the original recipe, we have the one I traced, and now I'm going to add this weeded version to this board so you can see what it looks like. So we're going to use transfer tape for this, and I'm just going to put this on the vinyl. And then we're just going to use a scraper and scrape over this really, really well. So because the vinyl is such an intricate design, you do want to make sure that this is stuck really well. And then we'll flip it over and slowly, slowly peel back, making sure all those little bits come off on our transfer tape. If it's not coming off, you can burnish again. You can burnish from the front, burnish from the back, and just keep repeating until you get your vinyl off onto your transfer tape. So here's my vinyl all weighted and on the transfer tape. You want to make sure your surface is clean, smooth, and dry. So that's very important. And then we'll locate this vinyl and just put it right down onto this surface. And then we're going to run a scraper over it and get it stuck down really well onto the surface. Then we'll just peel this transfer tape back. Again, peel it back slowly and at a 45-degree angle. Because this is so intricate, you might have to lay it back down, burnish a little bit more, and then keep peeling it back. So keep doing this until the vinyl is stuck to your surface, and you can also go over it from the other way as well, just making sure it's stuck down. So I'm just going to keep adding this vinyl to my surface, and then we can add our food safe sealer. And here's that completed recipe on the surface. So I wanted to show you it in comparison with the original, as well as the one I traced, and then the one I cut out with my Cricut machine. I think it turned out excellent. So now we want to really protect this, right? So the first thing would be to make sure everything is down on your surface. So burnish over everything. It is delicate, I'll say that, because the lines are so thin. So I would go over this gently and just make sure everything is stuck down to your surface. Because this is a wood surface, I'm going to do a seal coat first. That might not be required on surfaces that are not porous. I'll note that here. And I want to protect my surface, so I have some paper under this, and I have this lifted off of my surface. So I just have some cups underneath here to lift it up off the surface. And then I have 3 cups over here for mixing and my gloves on. You can wear a respirator and eye protection as well. Then we want to measure equal parts A and B in the first 2 cups. So the first 2 cups we're going to do equal parts A and B. And because this is a seal coat, it needs to be very, very thin. So I don't need much at all. These cups have measurements on the sides, and that is important because you want to be exact with this. I'm also doing this in a well-ventilated area. I do want to note that. So I'm going to do I'm just going to mix just a little bit of this. And I'm doing equal parts of the A as well as the B. Then once I have the equal parts measured, I want to put one of the parts inside the other. So I'm going to put part A into part B, and be sure to scrape the container very, very well. Now once you mix these, you do have a little bit, like say 30 minutes or so, but you do want to be quick. So I'm going to mix these two together for a full 3 minutes, and then we'll come back and we're going to mix for another 3 minutes, but we need to do something first. You do want the temperature of your space to be above 70 degrees, and while you're mixing, you want to scrape the sides as well as the bottom. And I would set a timer, so set a timer on your phone and definitely mix the full 3 minutes. You do want to mix gently so you don't introduce too many air bubbles, and you can mix up to 5 minutes. So 3 minutes minimum, up to 5, like if you are just want to make sure it's mixed really well, or if you have a large amount, maybe a little bit longer. This is a very small amount, so I'm going to do the 3 minutes on this first mix. Once that 3 minutes is up, you want a clean cup. We're going to put this mixture into the clean cup, and we are going to mix for 3 additional minutes. So I poured everything into the second cup. I scraped that container really well, and now I'm going to mix for 3 more minutes. Again, scraping the sides and the bottoms as I go, stirring gently so I don't get too many air bubbles introduced. Again, you have 30 minutes. No need to panic, but you do need to move swiftly with this once you mix the two together. So 3 more minutes of mixing. Now we're ready for that seal coat. So the seal coat is intended to be very, very thin, and it'll cure in about 4 to 5 hours, and then we can do the final coat. The seal coat just seals the surface so we don't have any bubbles. So I'm going to start in the middle, just pour some of this out, and we're just going to use something flat. This stir stick is flat, and we're going to do a very, very thin coat on the whole entire surface. So I'm just going to go over the surface. At this point, you are not sealing the vinyl to the surface. You are only sealing the wood to make sure there are as few air bubbles as possible in your final project. So we want to seal the entire wood surface. And again, I have that paper underneath here, so if I go over the edge, it's fine. So I'm just going to continue to scrape this into a very, very thin coat all over the entire surface. Now there are calculations in the package for how much you would need to coat an entire surface of a piece. You would use about 1/4 of that for this coat. So this is intended to be about 1/4 the coating thickness of the usual pour. So it should be very, very thin. And I'm just going to keep scraping this across, and then I'll come back, show you the final product, and we'll wait 4 to 5 hours and do our final coat. Once you have it fully covered, I do like to take my stir stick and just lay it to the side over here, and that's what I'll kind of test after 4 to 5 hours to make sure everything is cured. So now I'm just going to set this aside. It needs to be in a dust-free place, it needs to be level. It will self-level, and 4 to 5 hours, then we can come back and do that final coat. If you get drips around your edge, you can clean those up in the first, 25, 30 minutes, something like that. Now, the warmer it is in your space, the less work time you have. So you might want to go with think I have 20 minutes to work with this product once I mix it, so that you don't run out of time if your house is a little bit warmer than 70 degrees. All right, the coat to do the sealing has cured. Again, I have the cups. I'm gonna kind of raise it up, protective paper underneath, and then I have 3 clean cups. And once again, we are going to mix equal amounts. So I'm gonna pour in A and B equal amounts into these cups. Now I have larger cups this time because I will need more to flood the top. So I have my part B. I'm gonna pour an equal amount of A. Once again, these are cups with measurement marks on the side. You can either clean these or get rid of them after you're done. Again, I'm wearing gloves and protective equipment, and I'm just gonna mix the two together first of all, so add A to B. And now, we started our timer, right? So we're gonna mix this for 3 minutes, and we would like to be done in 20 minutes adding this to our project. So we're gonna make sure we get everything out of the first cup and into the second first of all. So I make sure to really, really, really scrape that cup well, get everything out and into the other part, so part A into part B. Then once you have everything in there, start my timer, mix for 3 minutes, slowly scraping the sides and the bottom. You just want to be sure to get everything mixed well and not make too many air bubbles. This time we are going to pop any bubbles that might rise to the surface, but we don't want to create an excess of them. And after we've mixed for 3 minutes, we are going to move this to a clean cup. So 100% clean, haven't put anything in it. And I'm going to dump everything out into the clean cup, mix for 3 minutes. And again, I'm going to scrape this cup, make sure I get everything out and into the new cup. So what this does is basically pours everything from the bottom to the top, and just make sure you get everything mixed up. Mixing is the most critical portion of all of this. So I'm going to mix again for 3 minutes, scraping the bottom and the sides the entire time. Then once everything is mixed, we're going to pour it on. Now this time I'm going to start in the middle, I'm going to pour it on. This will self-level, so we'll see if it will kind of level itself out. You may have to push it around a little bit with a stick or with even like a disposable brush. So we're just going to start pouring it on, pouring in the center, and it'll just kind of spread out on its own. Again, you might see some bubbles in this. Pouring higher a lot of times will sort of pop those bubbles as they travel down, and pouring slowly helps them too. But we will run over this just with, you could use a hairdryer. I have like a low temp heat gun, and just run over it with some air and those will pop. So I'm just kind of letting it pour out, and you can stop every once in a while and see how much it spreads. So when I stop, this circle, if you can see the circle here, it's going to continue to spread out. I don't want to like go overboard, have a huge mess where there's stuff all over my table. So I do want to like carefully pour. So the goal here is a 1/16 inch coating over the top. So your top coat should be about 1/16 of an inch. And we can move this around a little bit. You can use something like a scraper. The edge of one of these sticks works well. But this time we don't want to go too thin, right? So you might just want to push it around a little bit. But again, 1/16 of an inch. So we want a fairly thick coating all the way around. Then we can kind of continue to pour. I'm going to pour up high. I'm going to go around a little bit. And our goal is here to cover the entire top. You can let it drip off the sides. Again, you could clean up the drips on the sides. I actually want it to coat the sides this time, so I am going to kind of let it hang off of the sides. It will go into this hole as well on mine, which is okay. So I'm going to make sure this gets to the edges on all sides. You can have it pour over the edge as well, completely up to you. I'm just going to kind of push it to the edge and let it over pour just slightly to cover that edge just in a thin coat. So I'm just going to make sure that it comes all the way out to the edge and even to the edge of my hole up here at the top. So we're just going to keep doing this, and now this will need to cure completely. So let me go ahead and keep covering this, and then we'll talk about getting rid of any bubbles that might come up. So for the edge, I've got like some drips going around, but they're not even. So what I'm going to do is just use a disposable brush and kind of pull those around to where there's a thin coat all the way around my edge. So I want my edge to look the same all the way around, not like there's just drips in some places and other places there's nothing. So I'm just going to move this, and if this is a disposable brush, so I could just toss it. Don't have to worry about cleaning it up. And I'm just going to keep going around the edge and making sure everything is even. Now remember, we have 20 minutes. 6 minutes of those was mixing up, so I still have a few minutes to get this done, and then we'll need to pop the bubbles before that 20 minutes is up. All right, so this is really self-leveling now, which is awesome. Went around to all the edges with my brush, and I'll continue to do that until it, like for 30 minutes or so, just cleaning up any massive drips. You could also sand them off after everything cures. And now I just have like a low temp heat gun. This could be a hair dryer. You could blow over this just with your mouth and blow over the top. Just anything to clear any bubbles that you see. So I'm just going to turn this on and kind of blow over the top. I will speed this portion of the video up and turn the sound off because you don't want to hear my little heat gun here. But I'm going to go ahead and blow over the top of this. I can definitely see those bubbles pop as I'm going over the top. You probably can't see it on camera. When you're doing a project like this, look at all angles and see if you can see any bubbles, and then just run your hair dryer or low temp heat gun just right over those areas. Then once you have that done, this does need to cure for 8 hours. Again, it needs to be dust free and also level. It'll be dry to the touch in 8 hours, and then you do need to wait 72 hours to allow it to fully cure before you were to put anything on top. And again, this is food safe. Now that is at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's warmer in your home or wherever you have this, it may take less time actually to cure. So that will kind of decrease the curing time. You can definitely put, like a lot of times I just take a large box and put it over the top, and that way no dust or debris will get in it. And that way I don't have to worry about anything getting in it as it cures. So it has been, actually it's been 72 hours. My glaze is completely dry to the touch, as well as cured and ready to go. And you can see just how shiny this product is. I love, love, love the way this turned out. I love the recipe. Now you can use this to display, so you could hang this on the wall. You could also use this as a serving tray, so a charcuterie board with your favorite recipe on it. This is a pie recipe. I could use it as a pie serving tray. However, you don't want to put hot things on this surface because you don't want to damage the epoxy. So I would keep it to like those examples I used. You would not use something like this to put something out of the oven onto or anything like that. So keep that in mind when you are deciding what recipe you want to put on and what kind of board or whatever you want to use. Now that this has cured, this is ready to go. You can sand off any stray drips or anything like that, and then you are ready to display or use your serving tray with your handwritten recipe now on it. So here's just a reminder of what the original recipe looked like compared to what is on the actual board, and I really am pleased with the results, and I can't wait to display this one in my own home. So I am absolutely in love with the way this turned out. I want to make all the projects. Give me all the recipe cards and let me do them. So I found that this method was the easiest for me. So tracing the recipe. Now, can you take some recipe cards that might be in better shape than mine and go directly into Cricut Design Space? Yes, possibly. Mine was not in great shape, and I wanted an option for those of you that have these really yellowing recipe cards with tons of stains. And I really think the tracing option is best for those. If you have a recipe card that's in good shape, try going directly into Cricut Design Space with it. I really think that you might have luck there. But a lot of times the pen lines on these recipes are so very thin. Tracing it at least makes them a little thicker, a little bolder, a little easier to translate into an SVG file for your Cricut machine. So now I'm ready to use this for my food serving needs. So if you have any project you're working on, looking for a food sealer, look no further than this Watco product. It is a super thick glaze. You saw how glossy it was on the camera. It is absolutely gorgeous. My vinyl is fully protected. It is not going anywhere. So although this project took me a long time to make, with the cutting of the vinyl, the application, all that stuff, it was such an intricate project and so large, it's not going anywhere. Now that I have it on there, I have it covered with this coating. It is not going anywhere. It is there for the long haul, which is what I absolutely adore about this product. So if you're looking for a food safe sealer, look no further. I will link to this sealer as well as all the rest of the supplies I've used in the description below this video. Scroll down if you're on computer and click show more. If you're on mobile, swipe up on the video or click the arrow depending on how you're watching. Then you'll find a list of links for everything I used. You can pick up the sealer, you can pick up some vinyl, and then find your recipe card, dig through those recipes, and make this project with your own handwritten recipe. I really think you're going to love this one and love how it turns out. These make amazing gifts. So just bookmark this now for gifts for the holidays, because you're going to want to make tons of these boards for everyone on your list. So if you have any questions about anything we've covered, drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you like this video, if it helped you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.